The Mariners, in the first series of the season, they could not hit spin. It looked a whole lot like last year when they were facing the Red Sox up there, junking it up with sweepers and sliders and cutters and sinkers and curveballs and splitters. And the Mariners couldn't hit any of it. And they struck out 45 times in 4 games to just 6 walks against the Red Sox. Is there reason for concern?
No, because it's 4 games into the year. We talked about this a little bit on the live stream, which if those of you listening to the podcast don't know this, we'll give ourselves a little bit of a plug right here. Now, every Sunday night at 7 p.m. going forward, TJ and I are going live on Instagram and YouTube to basically take any questions you guys have, interact with you guys, just more ways to, build some connections within like the Mariner fan base and just answer questions people have. So if you want live reactions to things, go check out our live streams every Sunday at 7 p.m. But we talked about on those live streams that, it's too early in the season to be doing this. Yes, for the 4 games they played, it was suboptimal to see all the swing and miss at all the breaking balls because those were similar issues to what we saw last year. Ryan Divish wrote a story about this in the Seattle Times. The Red Sox knew exactly what they were doing entering this series. Listen to what Garrett Whitlock did on Sunday, for example. Dude threw 83 pitches. 23 of them were two-seamers. AKA, those were the only fastballs he threw. Of the 83 pitches he threw, 23 were two-seam fastballs. He threw 25 changeups, 15 sliders, 13 sweepers, and 5 cutters. The Red Sox knew exactly what they were doing entering this series. So yes, for the first series, it is nobody's cheering about the fact they were striking out a bunch. But this is still a roster that has been constructed to rid themselves of strikeouts. This is a roster with a team that is going to punch out a lot less. It just happened to occur in the first 4 games of the year. So, look at what happened on Monday. It was only 5 strikeouts. It went way down. I'm not saying there's not going to be games where they don't strike out. Every team does. But is there reason for concern overall? No. Do I wish they hadn't struck out that many times in the first 4 games? Yes.
Not reason for concern yet. I mean, you're right. The Red Sox knew exactly what they were doing in that first series. You just used the Sunday start for Garrett Whitlock. Wow, the entire series, their pitchers threw 11% four-seam fastballs. The whole pitching staff, 1 out of every 10 pitches was a four-seam fastball. If that doesn't tell you a game plan, I don't know what does. And it couldn't be more polar opposite here on Monday, where Tristan McKenzie's like a 50 to 60% fastball guy, and his velo's down like 4 miles an hour. So when Dom Canzone gets 91 miles an hour on the top rail of the strike zone, it's a little bit better than constant sweepers against the Red Sox. And, I'll give them credit. We've talked to a couple of Red Sox people who say, kind of like the Red Sox pitching attack of what they've sort of brought in the offseason, what they've been tweaking with. And it certainly worked for one series. The other big thing about that first series with this lineup, there's no Mitch Garver. Like, Mitch Garver is supposed to be in there, have a league average strikeout rate, above average power. He's going to walk at an above league average rate as well. And he wasn't there. Like, that's almost an improper way to evaluate a lineup. It certainly is. We saw a couple things that I think were actually like very positive. I thought Jorge Polanco had a bunch of good at-bats within that series. And, we got hammered with questions all offseason about, is Julio clutch? Was Julio going to be clutch? And yeah, he was clutch. Yeah, he was clutch. He did his job. He went up there, the game on the line, couple times. He walked the first time in game number 1, and then game number 3 walked it off. And that's what you want to see. He was patient, waited for his pitch, came to him, and he made him pay. And it worked out.
Yeah, and you're seeing him lay off a lot of the pitches that he was swinging at last year. Again, it's only been 4 games. We'll see how it plays out through the course of 162, but it's a pretty good sign. He didn't look like he was pressing. He doesn't look like he was overmatched. He was pretty relaxed in those situations, and it led to some very positive results.
So overall, a couple more lineup notes that I noticed that are going to change, but I think these are like the biggest areas that are going to change as the team moves forward. I mean, we talked so much about adjustments. They didn't OPS under 400 the second time through the lineup in that first series, which I heard Rick bring it up today again when I was listening on the radio, and Rick was like, "Hey, listen to how this lineup operates." They had that outing against Yamamoto in spring training where he carved him up the first time through. They came back out with the second time through with a game plan, and they knocked him around. Well, they didn't do that against the Red Sox. Like 393 OPS is that would be a good on base percentage, but not a good OPS. So that was innings 4 through 6. That was their OPS. I qualify the second time through, but it's second to third time through the lineup is innings 4 through 6. And then 3 ball counts against the Red Sox, damage counts. They were 4 for 23 with 0 extra base hits, 14 strikeouts, and 6 walks on those counts. By the way, the league ratio last year on 3 ball counts was about a 2-to-1 walk to strikeout ratio, and the Mariners was flipped. So it wasn't very good. Not good in damage counts, not good second time through the lineup, and overall, flat out, just not good enough for a series. But thankfully, only a series, and we're not talking about April and May in the sample size.
Does the Red Sox pitching get some credit for this? I'm sure the cold weather plays some factor into it, but for example, I was pretty blown away with how dominant Nick Pivetta looked in that start that he made. Nick Pivetta is about a 3 or 4 starter. At least that's who he's been throughout his career. He's fine. He's not somebody you're going to jump for joy over, but he looked like he was just carving right through that lineup because he was. Like, that didn't look like a 4 starter that was pitching in that game against the Mariners. So I don't know if Andrew Bailey, I mean, a lot of Red Sox people seem to be praising Andrew Bailey a lot, who's now the Red Sox pitching coach, for allegedly some of the work he's done with this pitching group. But yeah, for a rotation we expected to be pretty middle of the league in terms of production, didn't look like that in the first series.
Pivetta pitched that well because I picked him up in fantasy. That's why. I had a really good fantasy weekend, and it just had to work out that way.
I thought everything you do fantasy-wise and betting-wise just goes to shit.
Oh, I'm good at fantasy. Well, actually, you know who stands on the podium alone at the top in our college fantasy league. You know.
Okay,
I keep reminding you.
Let me retract my statement.
Just gambling.
Fantasy football and sports, you're much better. Yeah, gambling's where you run into your problems. When there is just direct money involved, that's when you run into problems. Your $2 bets that don't win you $2.50.
Yeah, but Nick Pivetta, when I pick him up off waivers, woo.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the Red Sox pitching actually does deserve some credit. I don't think the Mariners are going to look like that all season by any stretch. In fact, like you just mentioned, here on Monday, looked much cleaner. Yes, McKenzie's velo was a little bit down, but they still had a much better approach. They still didn't look overmatched. It was much better.
It's a start.
Yeah,
it's a start. Let's a full series. By the end of this series, we'll have it'll be a better evaluation. But as I said on the stream, in totality, I mean, it's going to need to be till June. June, by the time we can actually say this, either this offense has a problem or this offense is a problem. Those are the two forks we will cross on June 1st. Mark it down.